Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we transform a pile of research into the exact knowledge you need to be perfectly informed. Today, we are undertaking a really critical analysis of one of the most powerful, yet often misunderstood, corporate assets, brand equity. We're going to be drilling down into the strategic process that organizations use to build, measure, and fiercely defend the immense financial value that's inherent in their name.
That's absolutely right. Our mission for this deep dive is to move past the simple definitions and really understand the strategic blueprint. I mean, how do companies orchestrate every single customer interaction to maximize that brand value? We're defining the difference between a successful product and, well, an unstoppable brand. And we're drawing key insights from these foundational frameworks that explain how consumer psychology really dictates profitability.
And to show you just how massive that financial difference is, we're starting with a prime case study in modern brand building, Lululemon.
Lululemon is not just a retailer. It's a masterclass in establishing a luxury premium brand from the ground up. And it was built on this shrewd, almost guerrilla-style marketing. The origin story is critical here. The founder, Chip Wilson, he saw a gap. Traditional athletic wear, often made of these cotton polyester blends, was just uncomfortable. It didn't perform well during strenuous exercise, particularly yoga.
Right, that's the technical foundation. The product itself was just flat out superior. He designed a black garment that fit well, resisted sweat. But the real lesson is what they did next. They didn't immediately start running these big national TV campaigns. They focused on hyper-local, grassroots saturation.
Exactly. Their genius lay in creating immediate scarcity and social proof. They didn't target the mass market. Instead, they identified the most influential local yoga and fitness instructors, and they offered them this exclusive ambassador status. These ambassadors received a year's worth of clothing completely free.
So they were outsourcing their marketing and their market research at the same time. Because in exchange, these key influencers hosted sponsored classes, they ran local product sales events, and maybe most crucially, they provided direct, candid design feedback right back to the company.
It creates a symbiotic relationship. These instructors are, they're viewed as authorities in their community. That lends instant, authentic credibility to the brand. When Lululemon first launched, it wasn't available everywhere. It was a curated experience delivered by these trusted local experts. And that established a sense of exclusivity and quality that, frankly, traditional advertising just can't replicate.
And the ultimate proof of this successful brand strategy is the financial payoff. The sources point out that customers willingly pay $92 for Lululemon workout pants, even when massive competitors like Nike or Under Armour offer comparable items for $60 or $70? They command this huge price premium simply because of the perceived superior quality, the status, and the whole brand experience.
The comparison to general retail is even starker. Lululemon stores are incredibly efficient. They generate up to $1,800 worth of product sales per square foot. Now, to put that in perspective, that's triple the sales density of long-established mainstream retailers like J.Crew or Abercrombie & Fitch. You see, this demonstrates powerfully that a strong brand is not just a logo. It's a deeply valuable, intangible asset that results in intense loyalty and, ultimately, maximum profitability.
Okay, let's unpack this. If a powerful brand can command that kind of loyalty and that kind of price premium, it's clearly the difference between mediocrity and market dominance. If we're going to understand how to build this asset for ourselves, we absolutely have to start with the foundational concepts.
Right. We should probably begin with the most formal definition, the one provided by the American Marketing Association, or the AMA. A brand is a name, term, sign, symbol, or design, or a combination of them, intended to identify the goods or services of one seller or group of sellers and to differentiate them from those of competitors.
That definition, while it sounds a bit technical, it really holds the secret. It's all about differentiation. And those differences fall into two critical categories, which, dictate how marketers appeal to us.
The first category is the most straightforward. The functional, rational, or tangible differences. This is all about product performance. When you think of a brand like Sony, you immediately think of reliable electronics performance. When you think of Nike, you think of athletic gear that helps you perform better. The appeal is based on these measurable, objective benefits.
The second bucket is where the emotional alchemy happens. The symbolic, emotional, or intangible differences. This is what the brand represents in a cultural or an abstract sense. Think of luxury brands like Gucci or Chanel. The value you're paying for isn't just the thread count. It's status, identity, and the abstract idea of belonging or aspiration that the brand embodies. It's what you feel when you wear it.
And it's important to note that this desire to differentiate is, well, it's ancient. Branding didn't start with 20th century ad agencies. If you look back to medieval Europe, guilds actually required craftspeople to put trademarks on their products. This wasn't just marketing, it was regulation designed to protect the integrity of the quality signal and to shield both the consumer and the producer from inferior counterfeit goods. Likewise, artists began signing their work to establish provenance and value long before modern corporations ever existed.
And today, the role of brands is perhaps more important than ever for consumers. In a world just saturated with choice, brands simplify our decision-making. They act as shortcuts. When you see a familiar brand, you immediately reduce the perceived risk of purchasing. Crucially, they identify the source or maker, allowing you to assign responsibility for performance. If the product works, you buy it again. If it fails, you know who to blame.
And for the firms themselves, brands perform these essential internal functions. They simplify product handling, they make inventory and accounting management easier, and significantly, they offer legal protection. Trademarks protect the name, patents protect unique processes, copyrights protect the creative expression in advertising or packaging. These intellectual property rights are just critical for securing the firm's investment in the brand.
The ultimate outcome of all these functions is market power. When a brand signals quality and consistency, consumers become loyal. And that brand loyalty, according to the data, provides predictability and security of demand, which in turn creates massive barriers for new competitors trying to enter the market.
And that loyalty is quantifiable. The core research points out that loyal customers are often willing to pay a hefty premium. We're talking 20% to 25% more for their preferred brand compared to a competing, less emotionally connected product. That's the power of the intangible asset at work.
Which brings us to perhaps the most famous cautionary tale in marketing history, one that proves that brand loyalty transcends logic and even taste. The disaster of New Coke.
Oh, the New Coke story from 1985 is the perfect example of executives just ignoring the emotional reality of their brand. Coca-Cola was being challenged by Pepsi in these various blind taste tests, where the sweeter Pepsi often outperformed Coke. So they decided to change their century-old formula, introducing a sweeter variation that their market research had validated.
And they spent $4 million on that research. They ran 200,000 blind taste tests. And the new formula was genuinely preferred by test subjects, including loyal Coke drinkers. Logically, this was the right move. You address the taste deficiency and you capitalize on the improved performance.
Yet, when New Coke launched, the nation went into a collective uproar. Angry letters poured in, protests were organized, even lawsuits were threatened, all demanding the return of the real thing. What those $4 million worth of taste tests utterly failed to measure was the profound cultural, emotional, and psychological attachment consumers had to the idea of Coca-Cola. It was the taste of their childhood, their country, tradition.
It wasn't about the liquid at all. It was about the legacy.
Precisely. They changed the fundamental brand promise. New Coke was withdrawn just 10 weeks later, and when the original formula was brought back as Classic Coke, the brand's position was ironically reinforced and strengthened. It became a global symbol of the victory of tradition over corporate optimization.
And here's where the power of branding gets almost, unsettlingly pervasive. The sources reference this research on preschoolers, where identical food items, even things as simple as carrots, milk, and apple juice, were consistently rated as tasting better when they were wrapped in familiar McDonald's packaging compared to unmarked wrappers. The brand literally alters the physical experience of consumption.
This is why the scope of branding is so vast. Marketers can brand virtually anything. Physical goods like a Ford Flex, services like Singapore Airlines, stores like Nordstrom, and even entities outside of commerce.
Yeah, take the action sports icon Shaun White. He built a whole brand around his career. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a phenomenon. He survived major heart issues, he dominated both snowboarding and skateboarding at the highest levels, and he signed his first deal with Burton at the age of 7.
He became a brand in his own right, characterized by authenticity, high performance, and youth appeal. The White collection by Burton was a huge success. Companies like HP used him to market high-end laptops, and Oakley's signature goggle designed by White became its top seller. He managed to translate his personal brand power into everything from electronics to mass-market streetwear, proving that brands can be organizations like U2, places like the city of Sydney, or even abstract ideas like free trade.
So if the brand is so powerful, How do we quantify that added value?
We quantify it through the concept of brand equity. This is defined as the added value endowed on products and services. It's reflected in how consumers think, feel, and act regarding the brand, and ultimately it shows up in higher prices, larger market share, and superior profitability.
But the dominant perspective in modern marketing isn't just the raw financial value. It's something called customer-based brand equity, or CBBE.
That's the core focus. CBBE is the differential effect that brand knowledge has on consumer response to the marketing of that brand. To put it simply, when you see the brand name, does your response change?
A positive CBBE means consumers react more favorably when the brand is identified. They're more willing to buy it, recommend it, and pay more for it.
And conversely, if a brand has negative CBBE, consumers react less favorably. This usually signifies that the product has deteriorated into a commodity status, where the competition is based purely on price, with no loyalty or psychological premium attached.
And this CBBE is built on three key ingredients. First, as we said, there has to be a genuine difference in consumer response.
Second, that difference must originate from brand knowledge, the total accumulation of consumers' thoughts, feelings, experiences, and beliefs associated with that name. The marketer's job is to create associations that are strong, favorable, and unique. Think about the immediate associations brands like Toyota, reliability, Hallmark, .caring, or Amazon, convenience. They've successfully cemented those in our minds.
And the third ingredient is that this equity must be reflected in all aspects of marketing, from product perceptions and preferences to actual behavior. Strong brands simply generate greater revenue predictability.
The sources confirm the immense tangible benefits. Strong brands enjoy greater customer loyalty and larger margins, as we saw with Lululemon. They're far less vulnerable during marketing crises or sudden competitive price cuts. They also secure greater cooperation from trade channels and, perhaps most importantly for corporate strategy, they offer significantly more brand extension opportunities down the line.
This entire core vision of what the brand commits to be and do for its consumers. But you have to remember, the consumer holds the ultimate veto power. They grant or deny permission for marketing actions based on what they think and feel about that promise.
And when you violate that promise, even successful, well-regarded parent brands can have massive failures. Think of Bengay aspirin. It suggested pain relief, but the association with Bengay's potent external cream was just too strong and inappropriate for an internal analgesic. The same thing happened with Cracker Jack cereal and Fruit of the Loom laundry detergent. The brand's existing equity simply didn't stretch that far.
But when that promise is perfectly delivered, the result is something like Virgin America. They promised to reinvent air travel. They focused maniacally on the customer experience. Exemplary service, an easy-to-use website, leather seats, mood lighting, in-seat food ordering. They delivered an emotional experience that relied on word of mouth and social media, and they successfully created a strong, palpable, emotional connection with their customers.
Right. It's about that whole experience.
So building a strong brand today requires a comprehensive, repeatable process we call strategic brand management. The sources outline 4 main steps: establishing positioning, implementing the marketing, measuring performance, and finally growing and sustaining value. We've covered establishment. Now let's focus on the measurement tools that help managers track the health of their brand.
One of the most famous tools for assessing brand health is Young and Rubicam's Brand Asset Evaluator model, the BAV model. This isn't just a simple survey. It's based on massive global research with hundreds of thousands of consumers, comparing the equity of thousands of brands across diverse markets. It uses 4 core pillars to assess a brand's vitality.
Okay, so instead of just listing all 4, let's focus on what they actually do. The first pillar is crucial: energize differentiation. This isn't just about being unique. It's about being unique and possessing perceived momentum or leadership. If you don't differentiate, you can't command higher margins.
Then there's relevance, which measures the brand's appropriateness and the breadth of its appeal to the market. Is this product something I would actually consider using? A brand might be highly differentiated, but if it's not relevant, it's irrelevant.
The third is esteem, which captures perceptions of quality and loyalty, how respected and regarded the brand is. And the final, most basic pillar is knowledge, which is simply consumer awareness and familiarity.
Where the BIV model gets strategically interesting is how it groups these pillars. We combine differentiation and relevance to get brand strength. This is the forward-looking, the leading indicator. It predicts the brand's future growth potential.
And we combine esteem and knowledge to get brand stature. This is the brand's current operating value. It's like a report card on past performance. So you can have a high stature brand. People know you and respect you for what you did, but low strength, meaning you're losing relevance and differentiation.
Right. And plotting these indicators onto a strategic grid reveals where a brand is in its life cycle. Most companies aspire to be in the leadership quadrant, high on all measures, enjoying maximum earnings and growth potential. But the most dangerous place is the eroding, declining quadrant.
That's the strategic danger zone. That's where you have high knowledge, everybody knows who you are, but you have low relevance, low esteem, and poor differentiation. Think of legacy brands whose names are familiar but whose products feel dated or whose quality perceptions have slipped. They are struggling to overcome these deeply ingrained but currently negative consumer expectations.
This exhaustive BAV research ultimately revealed a deep problem, which researchers dubbed the brand bubble trouble. Despite what stock prices might suggest, the data showed that for the vast majority of consumer brands, core value measures like trust, admiration, and top-of-mind awareness were stagnating or actually falling globally.
Wait a second. If brand values were falling, why were companies still attributing massive intangible financial value to them?
Well, it was skewed by the massive, unrelenting success of a few mega brands, the Googles and the Apples of the world, which were performing so well that they dragged up the average. The sources identified three crucial factors driving the stagnation for everyone else. First, the sheer proliferation of new brands, which was overwhelming consumers. Second, a lack of creative big ideas leading to commoditization. And third, a widespread plummeting of trust due to corporate scandals and inconsistent delivery.
So if the old rules are breaking down, what makes a modern brand succeed?
The BAV research zeroed in on the factor of energy, defining it by three components: vision, a clear sense of purpose; invention, changing consumer behavior; and dynamism, excitement in presentation. Brands like Zappos, known for its extreme customer service, or Amazon, constantly inventing new categories, are models of this energy.
Now, moving to a complementary model, we can look at the brand resonance model developed by Kevin Keller. This views brand building as a precise, sequential pyramid process designed to create intense, active loyalty.
Right, this model uses 4 stages to lead to 6 building blocks. The first stage is identity, asking, who are you? The goal here is brand salience, how frequently and easily the brand comes to mind in the appropriate purchasing situation. If you need a trustworthy paper towel, do you immediately think of Bounty?
The second stage is meaning. What are you? This involves both rational and emotional associations. The rational side is performance meeting functional needs, and the emotional side is imagery, the extrinsic, intangible properties like who uses the brand or what kind of personality it conveys.
The third stage is response. What about you? This captures the consumer's personal evaluation. We have judgments, personal opinions on quality, credibility, superiority, and feelings, the emotional reactions we have to the brand security, fun, excitement.
And the final, pinnacle stage is relationships. What about you and me? This is the state of resonance. It's characterized by intense psychological bonding and active loyalty, where the consumer feels deeply in sync with the brand. You see this in communities like Apple Fanatics or the Harley Owners Group.
What's powerful about this model is how it clearly illustrates the necessity of duality, the need to satisfy both the rational and the emotional consumer.
How so?
Take MasterCard. Rationally, their core advantage is worldwide acceptance, a practical performance benefit. But they successfully fused this with the emotional appeal of the Priceless campaign, reinforcing the idea that the emotional rewards of a purchase are what truly matter. To reach true resonance, you absolutely must excel on both the performance side and the emotional imagery side.
So we have the models to measure brand health. But how do marketers proactively build the strong knowledge structure required to reach that pinnacle of resonance? The sources list 3 main drivers. The first involves the careful selection and deployment of brand elements.
Brand elements are the trademarkable devices that identify and differentiate the brand. Names, logos, slogans, packaging, characters. A strong brand rarely relies on just one. Nike, for example, combines the dynamic swoosh, the powerful name, from the Greek goddess of victory, and the instantly recognizable slogan, just do it.
And marketers have to be highly strategic when choosing these elements. The sources break down the selection criteria into 2 camps: elements that build equity and elements that are defensive.
On the building side, elements must be memorable, simple, easy to pronounce and recall, like Tide or Crest. They must be meaningful, suggesting either the category or a key benefit, such as die-hard auto batteries or lean cuisine. And they need to be inherently likable, aesthetically pleasing, and sometimes playful, like the name Flick.
But I'd argue the defensive criteria are often the most strategically overlooked. Elements must be transferable. The brand needs to be able to introduce new products across categories or even geography. Look at Amazon.com. They chose the name of the world's biggest river, immediately suggesting variety and scale, rather than naming themselves after the niche they initially dominated, like online booksellers. That transferability was genius.
They must also be adaptable. Brands need to be updated. Betty Crocker's image has been redesigned 7 times over 87 years to keep her relevant to modern consumers. And finally, they must be protectable, ensuring the brand avoids becoming a generic term, which would cause them to lose their legal trademark status, as almost happened with Kleenex or Jell-O.
Slogans are one of the most efficient ways to build equity because they capture abstract benefits so quickly. We hear them constantly, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, or Avis's long-running challenge, we try harder. They are immediate emotional hooks.
And when the product itself is abstract like financial services, symbols are vital for capturing intangibles. Prudential uses the Rock of Gibraltar to symbolize permanence and security. Allstate uses the image of good hands for protection and safety. These visual elements communicate instantly what the name might take paragraphs to explain.
Let's discuss the example of 42 Beetaloo vodka, because it cleverly uses its brand name to leverage both direct and indirect meaning at the same time.
Right. The direct meaning is clear. The product contains 42% alcohol, but the indirect meaning is its true strategic genius. 42 degrees is a latitude that runs through New Zealand. By referencing its country of origin, the brand instantly leverages the perception of New Zealand's pristine purity and environmental cleanliness. The visual elements, the packaging, the communications, they all reinforce this sense of unique, high-end positioning based on geography and purity.
That leads us perfectly into the second major driver of equity, designing holistic and integrated marketing activities. It is a fundamental misconception that great brands are built solely by great advertising.
That is simply untrue. A brand is built through every single brand contact. Every piece of information, positive or negative, a customer experiences with the brand. This includes the product itself, word of mouth, interaction with company personnel, the website, even how the store looks. The firm must manage all these touch points meticulously.
This requires integrated marketing.
Yeah.
Strategically mixing and matching all marketing activities, PR, events, sponsorships, social media, to ensure they maximize their individual impact while consistently reinforcing the same core brand promise.
The Olive Garden is a powerful illustration of integrated marketing that leaves absolutely no stone unturned. Their brand promise isn't just Italian food, it's the idealized Italian family meal. Fresh, simple food served by people who treat you like family in a home-like setting.
But is that promise believable? This is where the integration becomes extraordinary. To ensure that treating you like family and a home-like setting are authentic, they invested heavily. They sent over 1,100 general managers and team members on cultural immersion trips to Italy. They established the Culinary Institute of Tuscany.
Think about the strategic implication of those immersion trips. It's not just a vacation, it's operational reinforcement. A server who has personally experienced the culture and hospitality of a Tuscan farmhouse is far more likely to authentically deliver that warm, familial feeling than someone simply reading a script from a corporate manual. All their marketing, from the mass media to the restaurant remodeling, which is designed to look like a Tuscan farmhouse, works in concert to reinforce that singular core promise.
It's total commitment. Another example of integrated reinforcement is Mountain Dew. They host the Multi-City Dew Tour, featuring high-energy competitions in skateboarding, BMX, and motocross. That isn't a random sponsorship. It's a direct integrated marketing activity that reinforces the brand's credentials as high-energy, exciting, and credible to the coveted 12 to 24-year-old youth market.
And that brings us to the third driver, leveraging secondary associations. If you don't have equity, you borrow it.
You link your brand to other entities that already convey powerful meaning in the consumer's mind. These entities could be the parent company, the country of origin, distribution channels, other brands, co-branding famous spokespeople endorsements, large events, sponsorships, or third-party sources like awards and reviews.
Let's use the source's hypothetical scenario. Burton Snowboards introducing a new Dominator surfboard. How can they leverage their existing knowledge and credibility to make this launch successful?
Okay, first they could sub-brand it, Dominator by Burton. That immediately transfers the quality, design, and high-performance associations of the parent brand to the new category. Since Burton's origins might not immediately signal surf culture, they could strategically focus on distribution channels, ensuring the product is only sold in highly respected popular surf shops. That channel credibility rubs off instantly.
They could also use co-branding for specialized materials, much like Wilson strategically used Goodyear tire rubber on their tennis shoes decades ago to signal durability. Or they could invest in powerful endorsers, signing top professional surfers and sponsoring major events like the ASP World Tour.
And crucially, they would publicize every favorable third-party rating they received from influential publications like Surfer or Surfing Magazine. By linking the Dominator to these established entities, Burton reduces the perceived risk for consumers and builds massive equity, regardless of the surfboard's actual technical attributes.
Exactly. You're borrowing credibility.
So if integrated marketing requires managing every touch point, we have to look inward, because the brand promise is ultimately delivered by employees. We need to talk about internal branding.
Internal branding is defined as the activities and processes designed to inform, educate, and inspire employees about the brand and its promise. The underlying principle is simple. Employees must live the brand to deliver the desired customer experience. If they don't, the customer will never experience what we call brand bonding, which is the deep satisfaction derived from the company consistently delivering on its promise.
Disney is famous for its success in this area. They even run Disney-style seminars for other companies on how to cultivate that internal culture of excellence and high standards.
To achieve effective internal branding, 3 principles consistently emerge from successful companies. First, choose the right moment. You need to capture employee attention. Major external repositioning campaigns or turning points are ideal. When BP launched its massive Beyond Petroleum campaign, they simultaneously ran an internal campaign to ensure employees understood and were positive about the company's new environmental direction.
Second, link internal and external marketing. The messaging must be consistent. IBM's e-business campaign wasn't just a public-facing ad. It was a clear internal signal to employees that the company was prioritizing internet technology and that their internal roles needed to shift accordingly.
And third, bring the brand alive for employees. This involves internal communications that are informative and genuinely energizing. Miller Brewing, for instance, used its deep brewing heritage, the tradition and the craft, to generate pride and passion among its workforce, boosting morale and quality commitment.
Beyond employees, the internet and social dynamics have fundamentally shifted control outward, giving rise to incredibly powerful brand communities, these specialized non-geographically bound groups of consumers and employees focused on the brand.
These communities are vital for advocacy and loyalty. They are defined by 3 characteristics: a shared consciousness of kind, a strong felt connection to the brand, the company, or other members.
They also share shared rituals, stories, and traditions that communicate the community's meaning, everything from specific slang to annual gatherings.
And finally, a shared moral responsibility or duty to the community. Members often feel obligated to help new users, defend the brand from criticism, or share product maintenance tips.
The quintessential case study in community building is Harley-Davidson. Their ability to harness their community literally saved them from financial ruin.
Facing financial collapse and severe product quality issues in the 1980s, management made 2 strategic decisions: dramatically improve manufacturing quality and simultaneously develop the Harley Owners Group, or HOG. They recognized that while the product was faltering, the love for the brand was indestructible.
HOG is enormous, over 1 million members globally. It's a full-service social ecosystem. It sponsors massive rallies, charity rides, and provides services like Hogtails magazine, insurance, and emergency road service. This organization creates an intensely committed customer base that effectively acts as the company's best unpaid marketing team.
What's fascinating about these communities is the specific behaviors they encourage. The research details several, and instead of listing all 12, let's highlight a few surprising ones. Think of badging, which is translating shared experiences or milestones into public symbols, like special patches for completing a certain number of rides. This gives immediate status within the group.
And there's grooming, where members share maintenance tips and care advice for the product. This isn't just helpful. It reinforces the value of ownership and the longevity of the product. The community takes responsibility for teaching new members how to integrate the brand into their lives.
Critically, management must understand the reality of brand communities. Managers often see them as just a marketing channel, but the sources emphasize that they are a business strategy that must be supported by the entire organization. And the most difficult reality for any corporation to accept is that control is an illusion. Community success requires opening up and letting go, accepting that the community exists to serve the needs of the people who comprise it, not the corporation's immediate sales goals.
Okay. We've established how to build equity internally and externally. Now, how do we track and manage this intangible asset over the long term, ensuring both its financial and perceptual health remain sound? Marketers use two main approaches to measure equity.
The first is the indirect approach. This assesses the potential sources of equity by tracking consumer brand knowledge structures, awareness, associations, attitudes. This is typically done through a deep, comprehensive brand audit.
The second is the direct approach. This assesses the actual impact of brand knowledge on consumer response to different marketing efforts, tracking price premiums, market share changes, and consumer willingness to participate in promotions. This requires continuous tracking studies over time. You need both to understand the why and the what of your equity.
To connect these two measurements all the way up to the C-suite, we use the brand value chain. This framework illustrates the flow of value creation.
It begins with marketing program investment, all the money spent on product development, communications, and employee training. That investment must then successfully impact the customer mindset, the awareness and associations we discussed earlier.
The customer mindset then drives brand performance, which results in tangible outcomes like higher prices, increased market share, and greater profitability. And finally, brand performance translates directly into shareholder value, a higher stock price, and overall market capitalization.
And along this chain, we have three crucial multipliers that determine how effectively value transfers from one step to the next.
The program multiplier determines how effectively marketing investment impacts the customer mindset. This relies on clarity, relevance, and most of all, consistency in the messaging. The customer multiplier then dictates how value in the customer's mind affects market performance, relying heavily on competitive superiority and strong channel support. And the market multiplier finally determines how market performance translates to shareholder value, which is influenced by external factors like market dynamics and the brand's growth potential.
Now, we need to clarify a term: brand valuation. This is distinct from equity.
Right. Brand valuation is the process of estimating the total financial value of the brand in precise dollar terms. What is the net present value of the future earnings attributable solely to the brand name? This calculation is critical because, for strong brands, the brand value often accounts for over half of the total company market capitalization.
That really highlights the true power of the intangible asset. It leads to the legendary quote from John Stewart of Quaker Oats, who said, "I would give you the land and bricks and mortar, and I would take the brands and trademarks, and I would fare better than you." He knew the real asset was the trust and connection.
And valuation methods, such as Interbrands approach, are complex. They involve multiple steps like segmenting the market and financial analysis. But the core insight is the calculation of the brand discount rate. They assess brand strength using factors like clarity and consistency. The stronger the brand, the lower the perceived risk, which results in a lower discount rate when calculating the net present value of forecasted brand earnings. This means a strong brand, simply because it is strong, is financially worth more today.
Once that value is established, management has to be consistent. This is brand reinforcement.
Brands are living, enduring assets that require constant maintenance. Reinforcement means continuously conveying the brand's meaning, what core products it represents, what essential benefits it supplies, and why it is consistently superior to alternatives.
Nivea is a great example of successful reinforcement through growth. It began as a single, iconic skin cream, but successfully expanded into a massive personal care brand through extensions that all reinforced its core promise of being mild, gentle, and caring. The tactical offerings changed, but the strategic meaning remained constant.
But what happens when a brand loses its way, becomes outdated, or suffers from negative associations? That requires a strategic overhaul, or brand revitalization.
The first step in revitalization is diagnosis. Did we lose the positive associations, or did new negative associations take root? Then comes the crucial decision. Do we retain the original positioning and simply update it, or do we start a total reinvention? This creates a continuum of strategies.
On one end, we have Back to Basics, which worked spectacularly for Pepsi Blue Ribbon, PBR. Their sales were in dramatic decline in the early 2000s. Management didn't try to make it an expensive beer. Instead, they identified their greatest remaining asset, their authentic, genuine, no-nonsense quality.
They just leaned into the low-end status. They used grassroots marketing that avoided mainstream advertising, targeting tattoo parlors, dive bars, and underground music scenes.
By focusing purely on authenticity and letting the brand speak for itself and subcultures, PBR acquired an unexpected retro-chic image and authentic street cred. This return to their roots resulted in a phenomenal 25% sales increase in 2009. They didn't change the product, they changed the context and recentered their core truth.
And on the other end of the continuum is wholesale reinvention. And no brand has mastered this better in the modern era than Old Spice. When P&G acquired it, the brand was associated with the classic aftershave your grandfather wore, totally relevant.
The cologne focused entirely to pivot to the high-growth male grooming category, deodorants and body washes. They used product innovation like the Everclear technology breakthrough and coupled it with entirely new, highly effective, tongue-in-cheek advertising campaigns that targeted 12 to 34-year-old males. They had to effectively shed the old associations and create a completely new, humorous, and relevant identity.
The core challenge in any revitalization, whether going back to basics or reinventing entirely, is that tightrope walk. You must change enough to attract new, relevant customers, but not so much that you alienate the existing loyal base. Cadillac faced this with its design turnaround, modernizing its look while retaining its luxury status.
So managing a portfolio of products requires a formal branding strategy or brand architecture. This reflects the number and nature of the common and distinctive brand elements across the entire organization.
When a firm introduces a new product, they essentially have three strategic choices. Develop entirely new brand elements, a new brand use existing brand elements, a brand extension, or use a combination which creates a sub-brand like Toyota Camry or Hershey Kisses.
And brand extensions are further categorized. A line extension is a new product within the existing category, such as Dannon introducing a new flavor or a new size of yogurt. The risk is relatively low.
But a category extension is when the parent brand is used to enter an entirely different product category. Think of Swiss Army watches, or Honda applying its name across automobiles, motorcycles, lawnmowers, and marine engines. The core equity must be flexible enough to stretch across all those categories.
When deciding on their overall strategy, firms usually choose between three popular approaches. First, individual or separate family names, like General Mills using Bisquick, Wheaties, and Progresso. The key advantage here is that if a new product fails, the corporate reputation is shielded from damage.
Second, the corporate umbrella name, where one name covers all products, like Heinz or GE. The advantage there is immediate recognition, lower development costs, and the leveraging of the parent company's reputation for trustworthiness or innovativeness across the board.
And third is the sub-brand name, which offers a strategic middle ground. Kellogg's Rice Krispies is a perfect example. The corporate name, Kellogg's, legitimizes the product, while the individual name, Rice Krispies, individualizes it and provides that necessary differentiation.
These approaches define the ends of a continuum, the house of brands versus the branded house.
The House of Brands strategy emphasizes individual, separate names, often concealing the parent company. United Technologies, UTC, is the prime example. Its portfolio includes world-famous names like Otis Elevators, Carrier AC, Sikorsky Helicopters, and Pratt & Whitney jet engines. The UTC parent brand is only marketed to a tiny, influential audience like the financial community, allowing the powerful individual brands to maintain their specific identities.
Conversely, the branded house uses the corporate name as the primary umbrella, such as Google or GE, leveraging the strength of the main name universally.
So why does a company need a complex structure, like the Starwood Hotels and Resorts portfolio? They have Sheraton, Westin, W4 Points, and others.
Well, they need a sophisticated brand portfolio primarily to maximize market coverage while minimizing brand overlap. By creating distinct, segmented offerings, they increase shelf presence, attract variety seekers, and even promote healthy internal competition among the brands. The goal is to maximize market coverage while carefully avoiding cannibalization.
And Starwood masters this by differentiating their hotels along psychological lines. Sheraton emphasizes connection and a warm, casual experience. 4 Points targets the self-sufficient, uncomplicated traveler. W is flirty, escape, and the warmth of cool. And Westin focuses on renewal, symbolized by their famous heavenly beds, which are so strong in brand equity they are actually sold through Nordstrom.
Brands within the portfolio also play distinct strategic roles. We have flankers like Busch Bavarian, which protects the positioning of the main brand, Budweiser, by fighting lower-end competition.
We have cash cows, which are old products like specific models of Gillette razors that are maintained because they remain profitable with zero marketing support, funding the development of newer brands. There are low-end entry-level brands like the BMW 3 Series designed to attract new franchise customers who can be traded up later to more profitable models.
And finally, the high-end prestige brand like the Corvette, which casts a halo of technological image and aspiration over the entire Chevrolet line, even if most consumers will never own one.
Given the strategic advantages, it's no surprise that brand extensions are incredibly common. They account for 80 to 90% of all new products introduced annually.
The advantages are compelling. They immediately improve the odds of new product success because the brand sets positive consumer expectations. Consumers were comfortable buying the Sony Vaio computer because of their existing trust in other Sony products. This dramatically reduces the perceived risk.
It also reduces launch costs. You don't need to create brand awareness from scratch, and it's easier to gain retailer acceptance when introducing a familiar name.
And there are crucial positive feedback effects. Extensions can actually clarify the parent brand's meaning. Crayola started as crayons, but the extension into markers and craft kits cemented its meaning as colorful arts and crafts for kids. Extensions also renew consumer interest and help expand market coverage, like Kleenex aiming to put facial tissue in every room of the home.
But the disadvantages can be devastating if not managed carefully. The main risk is brand dilution. This is when the brand name becomes less strongly identified with a specific set of products or benefits. Cadbury, by entering mainstream foods like soup, risked losing its core focus as a chocolate brand. Dilution occurs when the shared associations weaken.
Then there is the very real risk of harm. If the extension is a spectacular failure, that negative perception can spill over and hurt the parent brand. Though rare, the classic example is the Audi 5000's sudden acceleration issue. The resulting negative publicity hurt the sales of the similar Audi 4000 model, though the more distinctively branded Quattro model was largely protected.
And, of course, the danger of cannibalization, where the extension sales come directly from existing parent brand customers. Smart firms mitigate this through preemptive cannibalization, like when Tide introduces a new liquid or powder version. They are ensuring that a customer they switch to one of Tide's own line extensions rather than a competitor.
But the ultimate proof that the wrong extension can destroy equity is the infamous failure of Bic perfume.
Oh, this one is a classic. Bic's core equity was built on cheap, disposable convenience. Pens, lighters, razors. They decided to apply this identical strategy to the category of perfume, selling quarter-ounce spray bottles for $5 at checkout counters. They even ran a $20 million campaign with the tagline, "Paris in your pocket."
You can just imagine the internal marketing meetings for that. It's hard not to chuckle at the sheer absurdity of it.
It was a disaster. It failed catastrophically because Bic was utterly unable to overcome the brand's deep association with cheap and disposable. Perfume and cologne are defined by luxury, cachet, and intangible emotional aspiration. The fit was entirely inappropriate. Consumers could not reconcile the idea of a $5 disposable luxury item.
The research on success characteristics confirms this strategic rigidity. High-quality brands stretch much farther because their core association is abstract, like excellence or trust. Fit is crucial, whether the new product aligns through product attributes, common usage, or user types. If the core promise clashes, like disposable convenience clashing with luxury cachet, the extension is doomed.
It's just doomed from the start.
So we spent this entire deep dive focusing on brand equity, the perception, the image, the name, and the intangible value. But there is a complementary, entirely quantifiable concept that grounds this entire discussion in financial reality: customer equity.
Customer equity is defined as the sum of the lifetime values of all the company's customers. Its value is driven by three measurable factors: acquisition, how much we spend to acquire a new customer; retention, how long we keep them; and add-on spending, how much more they buy from us through cross-selling and new offers.
So if we have two competing concepts of value, the perceptual brand equity and the financial customer equity, how should managers think about their relationship?
Well, they share the fundamental goal of maximizing customer loyalty and extracting lifetime value. However, their focus is dramatically different. Customer equity is relentlessly focused on the bottom line, using hard, quantifiable financial metrics. Its limitation is that it provides limited guidance for big strategic go-to-market decisions and completely ignores essential non-financial benefits.
Non-financial benefits like
Yes. Like the brand's ability to attract and retain high-quality employees, its ability to secure stronger support and better shelf space from channel partners, and the essential option value of the brand, the ability to launch future products or enter new categories easily. Customer equity doesn't capture any of that strategic breathing room.
Conversely, brand equity focuses heavily on strategic issues: awareness, image, and creating those crucial associations. It provides excellent practical guidance for marketing activities, but managers often lack detailed, customer-level profitability data to justify high expenditures.
Ultimately, the two concepts are deeply complementary. You cannot have strong brands without loyal customers, and in today's crowded marketplace, it's exceptionally difficult to acquire customers without a strong brand identity. Brands serve as the bait that marketing and intermediaries use to attract customers, and customers in turn are the tangible profit engine that monetizes that brand value into actual revenue and shareholder returns. You need both sides of the coin.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive into the architecture of brand equity. We've covered everything from the foundational definitions to the complex strategic models that guide multi-billion-dollar corporations. We saw the true power of emotional connections proved by the national uproar over New Coke. We analyzed the necessity of total obsessive integration, like the Olive Garden's cultural immersion trips for staff. We explored the protective, profitable power of brand community with Harley-Davidson's HOG, and we understood the complexity of brand architecture, where firms like United Technologies strategically manage a powerful house of brands.
The central, unavoidable truth is that strong brands are major enduring assets, but their value is ephemeral. It requires constant, meticulous, and consistent management. To reinforce this strategic mindset, it's worth revisiting Scott Bedbury's 21st century branding principles. First, always focus on brand relevance and resonance, not just simple awareness.
Second, remember the spandex rule of brand expansion. Just because your brand can stretch into a new category doesn't mean it should. And crucially, great brands establish enduring customer relationships built not on transactions, but on shared emotion and deep trust. Everything, right down to the cleanliness and design of the restroom, matters in delivering that promise.
And Bedbury predicted that going forward, it will be the brands that prioritize relevance, simplicity, and humanity, rather than just technology or efficiency, that will truly distinguish themselves.
So what does this all mean for the brands that dominate today? The challenge for every powerful brand is constant renewal and dynamic adaptation. Given that dynamism, simplicity, and trust are predicted to distinguish future market leaders, how will the most successful brands of today, from P&G's vast, trustworthy portfolio of household goods to McDonald's efforts to revamp its image toward perceived premium quality and speed, continue to maintain their immense market power when consumers' expectations for trustworthiness and constant, genuine invention are higher than ever before? That's something for you to mull or explore on your own.
Until next time.
We'll see you soon.